The city never slept. Even at midnight, the streets glowed with neon lights and the hum of drones filled the air. Skyscrapers stretched like silver giants into the sky, their windows flickering with advertisements, notifications, and holographic projections. People moved in streams along skywalks and maglev platforms, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of their personal screens. In the midst of all this, Aiden walked quietly, hands tucked into his coat pockets. He liked the city in a way. He liked its endless noise because it gave him an excuse not to talk to anyone. People passed him by every second, yet they didn't see him. He preferred it that way. Aiden worked as a drone repair technician, a job that kept him close to machines rather than humans. He enjoyed the hum of motors, the soft whir of tiny rotors, and the precision of circuits. People were unpredictable. Machines were reliable. Across the city, in a bright tower filled with holographic screens and virtual panels, Lyra guided tourists through the city, virtually. People from other continents could see the city through her eyes, moving through her simulated streets while she narrated history, architecture, and little-known stories of old Earth. Her voice was calm, clear, warm, yet when her shift ended, she felt an emptiness she couldn't explain. The crowds she guided were thousands of miles away, and the people she touched never touched her back. Lyra often looked out of her office window at the sea of people below. She was part of the crowd, yet completely alone. Every night the same thought returned. Is there someone out there who understands what it's like to feel invisible? It was a Monday when the city announced a new virtual experience, a grand interconnected simulation where people could meet in fully immersive shared worlds. The project promised freedom, adventure, and human connection in a city that often made people feel lost. Aiden read the news while soldering a drone's broken rotor. The advertisement flashed on his repair terminal. Experience the world like never before. Find friends, explore wonders, feel alive. He scoffed at first. Social experiments were rarely rewarding. But something about the phrasing, the feel alive part, caught his attention. Lyra saw the same announcement in her daily briefings. Most people she knew would dismiss it as another distraction. But she had learned to notice subtleties, to read between lines. The promise of finding someone intrigued her. Maybe it wasn't just about exploration. Maybe it was about meeting someone who truly existed, not just on a screen. By the evening, both of them had signed up. They didn't know each other yet. They didn't even know if they would meet anyone meaningful. But for the first time in a long while, they felt curiosity, a rare human spark in the midst of technological monotony. When they logged in, the real world fell away. They appeared in a floating city, a place built entirely from light, wind, and imagination. Streets glimmered like glass. Gardens floated midair, glowing with bioluminescent flowers. Waterfalls cascaded from no visible source, and bridges arched impossibly between towers. Aiden adjusted his view. This world was breathtaking. The air felt fresh, unpolluted, electric. And despite the virtual nature, he felt presence, as if someone else in the world could notice him, really notice him. Lyra appeared at the other side of the plaza. Her avatar shimmered softly, her movements graceful. She smiled at a passing digital bird. Aiden caught her smile out of the corner of his eye and felt a strange tug in his chest. Neither spoke at first. They didn't need to. The city itself seemed to hum around them, full of possibilities. A group of avatars passed, laughing and floating above the streets. They were connected by bright threads of light, sharing virtual experiences. But Aiden and Lyra were not part of that group. They drifted along separate paths, each drawn by curiosity. Aiden's path took him to a bridge made of liquid light, stretching over a glowing river. A sudden simulation glitch caused part of the bridge to ripple dangerously. Without thinking, Lyra reached out from the other side, her hand passing through his just in time to stabilize the bridge. They laughed, a light, genuine sound that echoed in the virtual sky. "Thanks," Aiden said, his voice cautious but warm. "No problem," Lyra replied. "I didn't want to see anyone fall today." They introduced themselves, hesitating with the sense that names were important but not everything. They started walking together along the glowing streets, discovering gardens that floated like islands in the sky. They climbed towers made of transparent crystal and slid down slides that curved around glowing moons. The simulation allowed them to interact in ways the real world never could. Aiden could fly beside Lyra without the fear of gravity. Lyra could show Aiden hidden tunnels that only avatars could traverse. They shared stories of their real lives cautiously, like revealing a secret in a crowded room. Afraid of being judged, Aiden told her about repairing drones, how he loved their predictability, and how humans often seemed too chaotic. Lyra spoke about her virtual tours, the loneliness behind the smile she showed the world. You know, Aiden said, looking at the glowing city. It's strange. I've been surrounded by people my whole life, but I never felt connected. Not like this, Lyra nodded. I know exactly what you mean. Even in a city full of lights and faces, you can feel invisible. Maybe this is different. For hours, they explored, laughed, and shared small victories, solving puzzles, navigating floating mazes, chasing virtual birds. And though they never said it outright, a bond was forming, a bond that existed in the shared joy, in the trust, in the feeling that someone else finally understood. As the simulation hours passed, reality started to press back. Notifications popped up, reminding them of meals, sleep, and schedules. The magic of the world was fading. Aiden and Lyra paused on a floating platform above a waterfall, watching the light refract like rainbows. I wish this could last forever, Lyra whispered. Aiden smiled softly. Maybe it can. We just have to find each other again. Neither knew if they would. They didn't know the other's real face, voice, or city address. But in that moment, it didn't matter. They had found humanity in the middle of the crowd, and that was enough. As they logged out, returning to their apartments in the towering megacity, both felt a warmth they hadn't felt in years. Aiden looked at his silent, humming drones and felt a strange hope. Lyra gazed at the window, watching the neon city streets, feeling lighter than she had in months. Somewhere in the middle of a crowded world, two lonely hearts had found each other. The city was alive with its usual hum of activity. Flying vehicles streaked across the neon sky. Crowds surged along skywalks and digital billboards blinked endlessly. Yet in two separate apartments, Aiden and Lyra carried a quiet excitement that the world below could not touch. Since their first meeting in the virtual simulation, both found themselves logging in as soon as their schedules allowed. The floating city had become their refuge, a place where the weight of loneliness seemed lighter, and where shared laughter could replace silent meals and empty hours. Aiden adjusted a drone in his workshop, but his mind was not on gears and rotors. He thought about Lyra, about the way her avatar had moved through the floating gardens, the soft humor in her voice, the kindness in her words. Normally, he preferred machines to humans. Machines did not surprise him, did not confuse him. But Lyra was different. She was unpredictable in the best possible way. Meanwhile, Lyra gazed at her screens, her mind wandering even as tourists asked her questions about virtual streets. She found herself smiling at memories of Aiden's dry humor, the way he had described the drone repairs as if they were tiny battles to be won. For the first time in years, she felt seen, even if it was through an avatar in a digital world. Their next meeting in the simulation was accidental, or perhaps fate. A new update had expanded the virtual city, adding winding alleys, hidden gardens, and floating islands that required collaboration to reach. Both logged in unaware that the other would be there. When their avatars met again on a narrow glass bridge, Aiden laughed. You again? I thought I might be alone today. Lyra tilted her head. I was hoping you would be here. Seems luck is on my side. They explored the updated city together, discovering hidden corners and secret paths. Aiden's curiosity pushed them to climb floating towers, while Lyra's knowledge of the city's history guided them safely. They complemented each other perfectly, her intuition balancing his caution, his precision matching her creativity. As they explored, the conversation deepened. Aiden admitted he often felt lost in the city, overwhelmed by the endless crowd yet unnoticed in it all. Lyra shared her fears of remaining invisible despite her popularity online. The virtual world, so full of light and wonder, allowed them to be honest without judgment. You know, Lyra said, leaning over the edge of a floating island, watching glowing rivers spiral below. I never thought I could enjoy a city so much. And yet here I am because of you. Aiden smiled. I never imagined someone could make the virtual world feel real. But you do. The moment was quiet yet profound. It was more than friendship. It was the beginning of connection, the kind that humans long for even in a crowded, technology-driven world. But the world outside the simulation was not idle. News arrived that the city's administrators planned a major update to the simulation, one that would require participants to provide more personal data to enhance interaction and realism. Aiden and Lyra saw the notice pop up during a shared quest. "It's asking for personal info," Aiden said, frowning. "If we do this, we might risk privacy. But if we don't?" Lyra nodded thoughtfully. "If we don't, we might lose this. I don't want to lose it." Neither wanted to expose too much, yet neither wanted to let the connection fade. They decided to continue meeting cautiously, sharing stories without revealing sensitive information, letting trust grow slowly. Outside the simulation, their lives began to overlap in subtle ways. Aiden noticed a rare drone component in a market that seemed oddly familiar. Lyra had seen the same component while sourcing materials for a digital art project. They passed the same street cafes, sometimes minutes apart, yet never crossing paths in reality. The city, with all its crowds, seemed to nudge them toward each other. One evening, after a long session in the virtual world, Aiden stayed logged in longer than usual. The simulation was quiet, the floating gardens glowing under artificial moons. Lyra appeared beside him, her avatar softly shimmering. "I'm glad you stayed," she said. "Me too," Aiden replied. I think it's time we met in real life." Lyra paused. The idea was both thrilling and terrifying. The virtual city had allowed them to feel safe, anonymous, perfect. Reality was messy, unpredictable. But deep down she knew that trust and courage were part of being human. "Okay," she said finally, "let's do it. Meet me at the Central Observatory, the one above the city lights. It's quiet and no one will notice us." Aiden agreed, feeling a mixture of excitement and nervousness he had not felt in years. They logged out, hearts racing, knowing the next step was real, irreversible, and powerful. The next few days were tense. Aiden found himself walking slower than usual, thinking about what to say, how to act. Lyra rehearsed greetings in front of the mirror, worrying if reality could match the connection they had built. The city moved on around them, unaware of the quiet anticipation building in two hearts. On the day of the meeting, the city was bathed in a golden sunset. The observatory stood like a quiet lighthouse above the urban waves, glass walls reflecting neon lights from the streets below. Aiden arrived first, watching the city stretch endlessly beneath him. It was beautiful, chaotic, overwhelming. Yet he felt calm. Lyra arrived moments later, her steps tentative but confident. When their eyes met through the glass, recognition sparked immediately. No avatars, no screens, just two humans standing in a world full of noise, finally seeing each other. "Hi," Lyra said softly. "Hi," Aiden replied, his voice steady though his heart raced. They talked, laughed, and shared stories in person, the way they had in the virtual world but with a new depth. Every gesture, every glance carried meaning. Every shared smile reinforced what they had felt through pixels and light. They belonged in each other's lives. The observatory overlooked the city, a sea of faces and lights. Yet in that moment, Aiden and Lyra were alone. Alone in the sense that no one else mattered. The crowd below was irrelevant. Their connection was what made the world meaningful. Hours passed like minutes. They walked along quiet platforms, pointing out familiar streets, sharing small wonders of the city they had never noticed before. Aiden showed Lyra a hidden rooftop garden where flowers glowed even at night. Lyra introduced him to a small art installation she had once designed digitally, now recreated physically by city artists. Every discovery was a shared joy, every laugh a bond strengthened. Both realized that human connection was not just about proximity, but about attention, care, and presence. The city that once made them feel invisible had become the backdrop for something extraordinary: trust, understanding, and companionship. As night fell, they found themselves back at the observatory, sitting on a ledge overlooking the glowing city. The hum of drones, the streak of flying vehicles, and the distant chatter of pedestrians faded into the background. For once, the crowd was no longer overwhelming. It was irrelevant. Aiden turned to Lyra, hesitating. "I never thought I could feel this way about anyone. Not in this city, not in all these people. But you." Lyra smiled, placing her hand gently over his. "I know, me too. We found each other in the middle of all this. Chaos. Maybe this is what it means to be human, to connect even when the world seems impossible." They sat quietly, watching neon reflections ripple across glass towers. In that moment, neither needed words. They had found each other, and that was enough. The city continued around them, indifferent to the bond forming high above its streets. But for Aiden and Lyra, the crowded world below suddenly felt alive in a way it never had before. They had discovered that true connection does not depend on numbers or proximity. It depends on heart, courage, and willingness to trust. As they finally parted for the night, each returned to their apartment with a lightness that no simulation or digital wonder could replicate. The city below was still vast, busy, and crowded, but now both felt that somewhere within it, someone truly understood them. And for the first time in years, loneliness felt temporary. The city stretched beneath them, alive with motion. Lights blinked from thousands of windows. Flying vehicles zipped through the air, and neon signs reflected in glass towers that reached toward the stars. For most people, it was just another night in the crowded metropolis. For Aiden and Lyra, it was the beginning of a new chapter. Their first weeks after meeting at the observatory were quiet but full of discovery. They met in cafes tucked away on quiet streets, wandered through rooftops illuminated by glowing plants, and visited forgotten corners of the city that most people overlooked. With each shared step, their connection grew stronger. They learned the small things about each other. The way Aiden's eyes lit up when a drone performed perfectly. The way Lyra laughed when she discovered hidden art installations. The virtual world had brought them together, but reality solidified the bond. In person, gestures mattered more than words. A smile, a touch on the shoulder, a shared look. These were the moments that made loneliness feel like a distant memory. One evening, they walked along the edge of a suspended park. The city below was a kaleidoscope of lights, the hum of vehicles like distant music. Aiden stopped suddenly, turning to Lyra. "Do you ever wonder," he said quietly, "if all this, the crowds, the noise, the endless motion, makes it impossible for people to find each other?" Lyra thought for a moment. I still do sometimes. But maybe it's not impossible. Maybe it's just rare, and when it happens, it feels like everything else fades." Aiden nodded. "That's exactly it. When I'm with you, the city doesn't feel so big anymore. It feels ours." Lyra reached out and took his hand. The gesture was simple, yet it carried a world of meaning. They continued walking side by side, hearts aligned in a rhythm that no crowd could drown out. Their routine slowly expanded into new adventures. They rode aerial trams across glowing districts, explored quiet libraries where digital and physical knowledge merged, and even participated in city festivals, marveling at the mixture of technology and human creativity. Each experience, no matter how small, was enriched because they shared it. Yet despite the joy, reality reminded them that connection required effort. Crowds, work, and obligations often pulled them in different directions. There were times when Lyra had to guide virtual tourists, and Aiden had to repair drones for clients who demanded perfection. They would glance at their watches, wishing for more time. But both understood that patience was part of connection. One rainy evening, Aiden suggested they visit the old observatory, the same place where they had first met. The city glistened with reflections from neon lights. Puddles mirrored the sky, and the smell of wet streets carried a strange, comforting calm. As they reached the top, they paused to look at the sprawling city below. The hum of vehicles, the chatter of distant crowds, and the glow of lights created a sense of infinity. Lyra leaned against the railing, her hair damp from the drizzle, and smiled softly. "I remember the first time we were here," she said. "I didn't know then if we'd meet in real life. But now," she trailed off, letting the words linger. "Now it feels right," Aiden said. He glanced at her, taking in her eyes, the curve of her smile, the quiet confidence she carried. "We found each other in the middle of a crowded world. That's rare. That's worth holding on to." Lyra nodded. "It is, and I want to hold on to it every day." From that moment, they began to think about the future, not in a rushed, overwhelming way, but in a patient, deliberate way. They discussed dreams, small ones like learning to cook together, and bigger ones like exploring cities beyond their own, or designing a project that combined drones, art, and virtual reality. Each idea strengthened their bond, giving them shared purpose and excitement. One weekend, they decided to combine their passions. Aiden would build a series of small flying drones, each carrying miniature lights. and Lyra would program them to follow artistic patterns in the air. Together, they launched a small display in a quiet park. The glowing drones traced shapes in the sky, flowers, stars, even abstract patterns that only they could fully understand. Passers-by paused, watching in awe, but Aiden and Lyra focused only on each other, laughing at their shared creation. "It's beautiful," Lyra said, her eyes sparkling. "No," Aiden replied, grinning. "We are beautiful, together." Their adventures were not always extraordinary. Many days were quiet. Shared coffees, walks through familiar streets, or sitting in a library corner reading while occasionally exchanging smiles. But even in routine, they found magic. The city that once made them feel invisible now seemed full of potential. Every corner holding a story they could experience together. One evening, after a long day of exploring, they climbed to their favorite rooftop. The city stretched endlessly beneath them, lights twinkling like stars brought down to earth. Lyra leaned her head against Aiden's shoulder, and he wrapped an arm around her. "Do you think we would have met?" she asked softly. "If it weren't for the simulation." Aiden thought about it. He had passed countless faces on crowded streets, and she had guided thousands of tourists virtually. Yet they had found each other in a space that felt impossible. "No," he said finally. "We needed that spark. Something that made us notice each other. But I'm glad it happened. I don't want to imagine life without this, without you." Lyra smiled, feeling a warmth she had never felt before. "Me neither. I think we've proved something. Even in the middle of chaos, humans can connect. Even in a world full of noise, hearts can find each other." The city below continued its constant motion, unaware of the quiet miracle above it. For Aiden and Lyra, it did not matter. They had discovered that connection is a choice, courage and attention combined. The crowd that once isolated them now existed as a backdrop for their story, a story of two humans thriving together in a world that could feel overwhelming. As night deepened, they sat in silence, hands entwined, watching the city breathe. Every light, every distant sound felt like a part of their shared journey. They knew challenges would come, the demands of work, unexpected responsibilities, and the inevitable chaos of life. Yet the lessons they had learned, trust, patience, courage, and openness, would guide them through. Aiden turned to Lyra, his face soft in the glow of neon lights. "We don't need a simulation anymore," he said. "We have this. We have each other. That's all that matters." Lyra nodded. "Exactly. The city, the crowd, it's just a place. What matters is what we build together." And so, in the middle of a crowded world, two lonely hearts that once wandered alone had found not just each other, but a shared life filled with joy, discovery, and hope. They had proven that even in a world obsessed with speed, screens, and endless motion, the human spirit, curious, resilient, and brave, could still find connection, love, and meaning. Together they leaned back on the rooftop, watching the city stretch toward infinity, knowing that as long as they faced it hand in hand, no crowd was too large, no world too chaotic. They had each other, and that was enough. For the first time, the world didn't feel lonely.